The world stood still. Still, a giant had fallen, the man who used to be taller than his opponents and whose punches spoke louder than words. There were no more words. Heavyweight champion, Olympic gold winner, preacher, businessman, and mentor George Foreman had taken his last breath. The news hit hard not only in the boxing world but also among fans, athletes, and regular people whose lives he had touched. His story was about more than just fighting, it was about being strong. Forgiveness and starting over. It was the young powerhouse who made his opponents afraid, the humbled man who left fame to find faith, the warrior who came back when no one believed in him, and the father figure who used his name not for glory but to change lives. That voice was silent, but his legacy was louder than ever. How do you say goodbye to a man who wouldn't give up? Someone who showed that you can get back up at any time with their whole life. Texas had never been so quiet. The man who had packed arenas with screaming fans was now the cause of a hush that could be felt in the air as thousands of people came to pay their respects. Friends and family, boxing legends and boxing fans from all walks of life went to the church, their hearts heavy with grief but full of thanks for the life Foreman had lived. His old rivals' families, including Muhammad Ali's and Joe Frazier's, were there to honor the brotherhood that boxing had built. The church was packed. Overflowing, and outside, thousands more stood quietly in thought. Some wore title belts as a tribute, while others wore shirts with his famous words on them. It's not about falling, but about getting back up. First, his family gave a moving speech at the funeral. His children talked about the man behind the legend, their father, who taught them about life. Faith and sticking with it. He always told us that life is like boxing, you'll get hit and fall, but the only thing that counts is whether you get back up, one of his sons said with tears in his eyes. He never let us give up on anything. He believed that failure was finally. There were honors from boxing fans around the world to Lennox. Lewis took a step forward, trying to hold back his feelings. George Foreman was more than just a winner. He showed that heart is stronger than muscle and that age doesn't matter. He came back when no one thought he could, and he did. What can't be done. Mike Tyson, the once dangerous boxer, had trouble speaking. I fought some of the toughest men in boxing, but George was my hero. He scared people in the ring, but he was the nicest, most humble person you'd ever meet outside of it. He taught me that being tough wasn't about hurting people, it was about standing up for something. Evander Holyfield agreed. Every lesson in the ring was a lesson for life. Michael Moore, the man who lost the heavyweight title to George Foreman in 1994, spoke with a bittersweet smile. People thought I should have been embarrassed losing to a 45-year-old, but you know what? Losing to George Foreman was an honor. He was proof that fate has its own timing, he said. Boxers were not the only ones who paid respect. Business leaders, young athletes, and even pastors talked about how Foreman had changed their lives. His influence went beyond the ring. He helped people through problems they thought they couldn't solve. Foreman's career wasn't just about wins, it was about transformation. He had two legendary boxing careers. The first was young, cruel powerhouse, who knocked out Joe Frazier in 1973 and won the heavyweight title with crushing force. He looked like he could not be beat, a monster in the ring, but then came Muhammad Ali back in 1974. This wasn't just a loss, it taught us something. Ali's plan to use the rope to slow him down. Foreman was physically and mentally broken after taking drugs. That loss could have killed him, but it turned out to be the start of something better. He quit the sport, found faith, changed his life, and then, against all odds, he came back stronger and smarter. People laughed at Foreman because they thought he was too old, too slow, and past his prime. But in 1994, when he was 45 years old, he shocked the world by knocking out Michael Moore to become the oldest heavyweight champion in history. It wasn't just a win, it was a message to everyone that you should never give up. Foreman wasn't just strong with his fists, his real strength lay in his ability to. He changed and grew when he retired the first time. He became a preacher and preached lessons of hope and faith. He believed that his second chance in life wasn't just about boxing, but also about helping people. Then he invented the George Foreman grill, which made him famous in a way that boxing never could. Over 100 million grills were sold, making him richer than he had ever been in the ring. But money didn't change him. He used his success to fund youth programs, support charities, and mentor young fighters. His boxing gym became a safe place for kids who had nowhere else to go. He didn't just teach them how to fight, he taught them how to believe in themselves. Many athletes have left their mark, but few have done it like Foreman. Muhammad Ali was the people's champion. He fought battles outside of the ring as well. Michael Jordan ruled sports and then built an empire. Kobe Bryant went from being a basketball superstar to a storyteller and mentor, but George Foreman was different. He wasn't just a fighter, he was a man who completely changed himself. He went from being a feared warrior to a beloved grandfather figure, from a knockout artist to a spiritual leader, from a struggling retiree to one of the most successful athlete entrepreneurs in history. His journey wasn't just about success, it was about redemption and showing that no matter how many times life knocks you down, you can always get back up. As the service ended, there was silence in the church. The bell rang 10 times, which is boxing's usual way of saying goodbye to a man who has died. Each chime was a reminder that legends live on. People whispered prayers, some cried, and others smiled as they remembered the man who had given them so much to believe in. Outside, the crowd stayed put, no one wanted to go. It felt like leaving would mean accepting that George Foreman was really dead, but he wasn't. He lived on in the lessons he had taught, the lives he had changed, and the hearts he had inspired. As the funeral procession moved forward, a group of young boxers from his gym walked alongside the hearse, each carrying a pair of boxing gloves as a final tribute. These weren't just students of the sport, they were young men and women whose lives Foreman had touched, guiding them not only in boxing but also in life. Many had come from broken homes and were struggling with self-doubt and hardship, but Foreman had given them something. He had given them more than just training. As they put their gloves on and walked up to his body, it was clear that his lessons from the church would live on through the lessons he had taught them. Family and friends spoke of his legacy. People thought about who else in sports, life, or history had changed in the same way that Foreman had as he walked through fire during quiet moments of reflection. His story wasn't just about victory, it was also about reinventing oneself and showing that no matter how bad the odds were, a person could always find a way to get back up. Now it was up to the world to carry on the lessons of a man who had taught us all that a true champion isn't someone who never falls, but someone who never stays down. As the sun went down, a soft breeze moved through the crowd, as if nature was honoring a man who had faced life's hardest battles and still come out on the other side with a smile. Many people in the crowd muttered stories about how Foreman had taken the time to motivate an athlete who was having a tough time. He had quietly given money to areas that were having a hard time. He gave wise words to anyone who asked for them. He never let his fame get in the way of his relationships with people, instead, he used it as a way to connect, inspire, and give back. As his casket was lowered, a final, surprise tribute took place. There was a single ring of the bell. That one last chime echoed through the air like an echo of his legendary career, but this time it wasn't the sound of competition, it was the sound of farewell. The moment was heavy with emotion, but there was a quiet strength in the sadness. It was a reminder that George Foreman had never really been about winning fights, he had been about fighting for something bigger, hope, faith, and the unbreakable will to rise again. In that way, his spirit would never be buried, it would live on in everyone who dared to stand up after being knocked down. His fists made him famous, but his heart made him unforgettable. Now that he is at rest, we are left with a question: what will we do with the lessons he left behind? Will we remember that failure is never final, that change is possible at any age, and that the greatest victories are not just in sports, but in life itself? Foreman didn't just fight opponents, he fought doubt, fear, and time, and he won. Now it's our turn. Will we follow his lead and rise when life hits us, or will we let his lessons sink in? If George Foreman taught us anything, it's that the fight isn't over until you say it is.